Hello and welcome to the sequel to my Oppenheimer Harlowe build. This is an updated version of the build that has the same survivability, the same entanglement, the same ricochets, and the same leech, as well as having a tremendous amount more damage from a build that could already one-clip most bosses. The max roll for this build will be in the description, and I hope you enjoy. Now, the core of the build is based around the Field Scientist. This is an incredibly solid class mod. It's got skills that are incredibly good, such as Ripple Effect for entangling multiple enemies, for mobbing. It's got elemental damage as a skill, and also its guaranteed passive skill is splash damage, which improves our damage. But the main reason we take this is whenever Harlowe shocks an enemy, she entangles them. This allows us to keep our entanglements up, which allows us to keep our action skill up due to confirming reality recover and cooldown whenever we shoot an entangled enemy. Overall, this is an incredibly solid class mod where every single part of it is useful. Now, if we combine this class mod with a shield like What's for Dinner, which provides shock damage whenever we have overshield, this means we always have a source of shock, hence we always have a source of entanglement, hence we always have a way to get our cooldown back through shooting enemies. Moving on to the skills, this is a primarily red tree build, however it does have a solid amount of points in the green tree. Our first 5 points will be Field Ready Prototype. This provides 30% increased action skill damage, and I'm pretty sure this double dips, but at the very least this does scale our damage. Next up, we put 5 points into Elementary, as this is a 20% elemental increased damage. However, it is much more than 20%, as it will get multiplied twice, due to this definitely double dipping. The same goes for Enrich, which will put 3 points into, providing 21% increased radiation damage. Now, the next two skills aren't as important, so we'll put 1 point into Elephant's Foot just to provide a bit of survivability and damage in case our shields ever go down. However, due to a skill further in the build, it rarely will. For a last point, you can really put this anywhere. In my opinion, there's 4 options. You have to put 1 point in Get Up and Go for extra movement speed, 1 point in Bleeding Edge for extra reload speed, 1 point in Cyclotron for extra fire rate, or 1 point in PPE for extra max shield capacity. Overall, the best option for damage is Cyclotron because fire rate is a damage multiplier, and most things in this game are additive, even crit damage. So we will put 1 point in PPE for extra survivability. We put our next 5 points into Poison Sun, providing 30% increased radiation damage and 60% irradiation chance. While the irradiation chance isn't much use, the radiation damage is very useful. As stated before with Enriched and Elementary, it is a double dipping bonus, so we really want it. Our next 3 points will go into Chain Reactor, providing 18% bonus radiation damage to entangled enemies. This is very good as this is a damage multiplier, effectively timesing our damage by 1.18, and due to most damage being additive, skills like this are incredibly good for scaling our damage. Next up, we get 2 points into Fizzle Launcher. This is a decent skill, but it's mainly just taken to go down the tree. The irradiation darts, they deal damage, but you'll rarely kill an enemy for it. But this also allows us to get the Capstone Demon Core. Now this is really good for damage, as the Demon Core darts it shoots out deal a lot of damage, and they can hit the same enemy multiple times through one action skill use. And this will be very good for stacking up a ton of damage. Now you might be asking why we are stacking all this damage up, and that is because the augment this build is based around neutron capture. This gives 4% of our action skill damage dealt to our guns. Now what's interesting about this is the added gun damage is counted as action skill damage, meaning it can benefit from skills that trigger whenever you deal action skill damage, such as skills in the Greed Tree that will trigger further. But also, because of the way this skill is worded and coded, our damage bonuses tend to apply twice. First, when we shoot our Chroma Accelerator out and hit enemies, it will then get multiplied by all our damage bonuses. Then that flat damage will get added to our guns and get multiplied by the same bonuses. However, this will only apply for certain bonuses. These include action skill damage, elemental damage, and crit damage, as long as we have crit chance on our action skill. That concludes the red tree, and now we'll be moving on to the green tree. We'll be putting 5 points into momentum. This is a double dipping source of crit hit damage that is activated whenever we entangle an enemy and gives us 25% increased crit damage. Next up, we will put 1 point in neutron decay. This will be useful later once we get to the next row of skills. We'll also put 4 points into main hums, providing 20% shield capacity and 40% overshield capacity. This is a very solid defensive skill, and there's not much more to say about it. Our next skill is one of the most important skills for the build. Arguably, other than neutron capture, it is the most important skill, that being confirmative reality, providing 1.5% action skill cooldown whenever we shoot an entangled enemy. Now this is how we get our cooldown back, and without this skill the build would feel very clunky. After that, we put 2 points into Resonance Cascade. If we had the spare points, we'd put 3 points in. However, the build is very tight, so we'll only be able to afford to put 2 in. This provides 15% action skill damage per point, and is the largest source of action skill damage in any of Harlowe's trees, so we definitely want this. We'll be putting 1 point into Excited State, which gives Harlowe crit damage, but more importantly, whenever we damage an enemy through our action skill, our next shot will be an automatic critical hit. Now, while we aren't scaling our gun damage, this is important for stuff such as Jacob's weapons, which have ricochets and can do some nutty things, such as with the interaction with the disc launcher that I've shown in the boss montage. You can literally one-hit most bosses in the game with this. The only enemies you can't one-shot are flying enemies due to it not being able to hit. Our next 4 points will go into Refraction. This provides Ricochet, and this is incredibly good for mobbing. We will put 1 point in Distribution Function next. This provides Overshield and Shield Leech from our action skill damage. Due to Neutron Capture providing action skill damage to our gunshots, this means every single shot will recover our shield, and this isn't just a slight amount. This is about half your shields and half your overshields in one shot. Combine that with a gun that shoots, say, 20, 30 bullets per second, then you will never lose your shield and you will never go down. Overshield also has the further benefit of giving you the damage bonus from What's for Dinner, because that triggers whenever you have Overshield. What's for Dinner gives you a 1.25 damage multiplier effectively by giving you 25% of your damage as shot, with the condition you have Overshield. This leaves 3 points left, and we will be putting them in Make Extraordinary in the blue tree. If we had the spare points, we'd put even more, because this gives our action skill crit chance. And effectively crit chance is one of the largest sources of damage in the game, because crit damage applies twice, but also the base crit multiplier doubles your damage, meaning this skill is incredible and provides up to 36% increase, 36% flat crit chance on all your action skills. When the level cap increases, this will definitely be the next 2 points we take. Now we move on to the specializations. First of all, we want 20 points in Daredevil, which we will need 10 points in Sharpshooter and 10 points in Runner to access. For the skills, what's most important is a Honed Mind, mainly for the 50% action skill crit hit damage, but also the crit hit chance is very important, and this just increases damage. We will also want 20 points into Survivor. First of all, the passive effect gives us 22% increased maximum health, which is useful if you're using the driver comm, as that increases your neutron capture's damage depending on how much health you have. We also want Bullets Are Scared of Me for damage reduction when we're on full shield. Due to distribution function, we will always be on full shield, so we will always have this damage reduction. We also want the best offense, which does the same as bullets are scared of me, but for increased damage. And due to distribution function, we will always have full shields, meaning we will always have the damage bonus. As for your last point, you can put it in a variety of places, but for my build, I just put it in now with caffeine, just for a little bit of nicety during mobbing. But there are other good options, such as I am a gun, but that would require you to put more points into gun damage for this to be useful. As for gear, there's not too much to talk about because I've already gone over it in the previous video, which I will link in the description below and also right now. However, I will talk about what's changed, and that's primarily the class mod. For class mods, we will be using the Field Scientist. This is because its effect means whenever Harlowe shocks an enemy, she also entangles it. The rest of the dialogue, the rest of the perks aren't that important, at least for the effect. But as for the passives, that is also where it's very good because it gives splash damage guaranteed. This is important because it scales your neutron captures damage because that deals splash damage and is just very nice all around. The same goes for the passive skills, as it can give ripple effect, which is very nice for mobbing. Elementary gives 4% elemental damage per point, and you can also get some explosions with the last skill on the card right here. Yeah, in general, it is probably the best all-around class mod for this build, as other options include the Bio Robot or the Skeptic. I don't like the Bio Robot because I just don't think it does enough to justify its existence, and the Skeptic, just the skills are mediocre. So, and the only reason you're taking it is for the restoration of 5% when you hit an enemy with a status effect, because everything else is kind of useless, including the guaranteed passive being stasis damage, which is quite literally useless for our build. So in total, the Field Scientist is just your best option in terms of general use situation, as it gives a sizable amount of bonuses for clear and damage. If you want even more damage for the build though, you can use a driver. However, I would caution against this unless you've actually got a good driver, because the skills it can roll and the guaranteed passives aren't that great. Lifesteal doesn't do much for the build because we're relying on a shield, and the actual passive skills that come with it, well, they're not that great. They're mainly focused on keeping your shield up, but we don't have any issue with that, so they are useless. The only reason I'd use it over a purple is if you've got the specializations, so you're increasing your max health, therefore increasing the effect, and also if you've got a good passive such as action skill damage. As for the last piece of gear, it is what's for dinner. This is not mandatory for the build, but it's very helpful. This means you don't have to use a shock weapon to entangle enemies. However, if you don't want to use this, there are plenty of other options which I have gone over in the other video. But you will have to use a shock weapon, at least for mobbing, if you want to get your enemies entangled and keep your action skill up. Thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you've liked the video, please like. If you've got any questions, ask down in the comments. And subscribing would help me out a lot.